While Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties all have a few thousand homeless people living on the streets, we don't often think of the thousands of families across South Florida on the verge of poverty or losing their home because of financial disaster. In its annual report, the United Way has released some stunning numbers that show many local families, perhaps our neighbors, even friends, who are just one paycheck away from losing it all. The United Way, in collaboration with its 35 offices across the state, looked at the number of Florida residents barely making ends meet and living on the edge of poverty. It's called the ALICE Report, an acronym which stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. In other words, people with jobs, some with college degrees, who are still struggling to cover the basics, such as rent, health care, food, and child care. Because they earn more than the federal poverty level, they don't qualify for state or federal assistance programs such as Medicaid. Statewide, nearly 30% of households are considered ALICE. Add that to the 14.5% already living in poverty, and you've got nearly half of Florida households in financial danger. Here in the Tri-County area, the numbers for Palm Beach and Broward counties track fairly close to the state average, with 40 and 44% of households below the poverty line or in the ALICE category. But in Miami-Dade, those numbers jumped significantly, leaving nearly 2/3 of county households under serious financial stress. And here now to talk some solutions for the Tri-County area are Lars Gilbert, statewide ALICE director, Yanette Obarrio-Sanchez, Senior Director of Public Relations for the United Way of Miami-Dade, and Alexia Savage, Senior VP of Communications and Resource Development for the United Way of Palm Beach County. Thank you all so much for being here to talk about this really important topic. So, Yanette, let's start with you. A lot of folks have never even heard about the ALICE report, startling statistics coming from it. So tell us more about how this all got started.
Well, it got started in United Way of Northern New Jersey. It was a well-to-do county, and they feared that many people thought, well, no one in our community is really struggling. Maybe those few. And the United Way there said, it's not those few. We're going to take a look at the real struggles of working families, because that United Way really wanted to do is the poverty level hasn't been adjusted since the 60s. So they wanted to look at really when you're working minimum wage or lower paying jobs, let's see what the real struggle is and how much it costs to survive in each county. And today, we have 14 states that have adopted the ALICE report, and every county in Florida took part, and we're able to see really what it means to earn more than the federal poverty level, but still struggle to make ends meet in your community.
Okay, and Lexi, let's talk about some of those numbers. So tell us, what does it look like, let's say, for a family of four, two working parents? What is that annual salary that puts them in that ALICE category that makes it so hard to make ends meet?
Well, there's what they call the survival budget in each market, which is really what the family needs to survive. In the Tri-County area, it ranges a little bit from county to county, but it's about $50,000 to $60,000 what they really need to survive. So anyone making under that is going to find themselves in a situation where they're struggling to make ends meet, whether it means that they're not able to pay a bill or rent or groceries. They're going to find themselves relying on some services for help.
And it's just really difficult, Lars, isn't it? Because we're talking about people who are trying to live the American dream. Absolutely. A lot of these folks have gone to college, but their jobs, the wages, just aren't helping them to keep up in order to live that dream without having to worry about how to pay that next bill. What's going on here?
So we do see some economic growth happening around the state. We've recovered in large part from the recession, which is great. We see our unemployment numbers coming down, but a lot of the jobs that have been created aren't really diversifying our economy that much. One of the things that we looked at in this report was where were we before the recession versus now, for families, for jobs, you name it. And when we adjust for inflation and all of that, we're right where we were as far as the types of jobs that we have, what they pay, but the cost of living has kept going up. In these three counties, childcare is still cheaper than rent, but most of across the state, the cost of rent it outpaces childcare. But here, because our rents are so high, it's just families are struggling in every possible way. and it's hard for them to get ahead. So we see families living together, especially young people. The number of households headed by people under 25 has really collapsed across the state, but especially in our communities where it's so expensive to live on your own.
Do you think that might be one of the reasons that people, and I'm just guessing here, are waiting to get married or start a family because it's just hard to put it all together?
Absolutely. It's hard to get the job, it's hard to get the home, it's hard to get all these things. And what we're finding even is our seniors, it's unprecedented. We've got almost half of our seniors back in the workforce. This has really never happened before. And they're competing for some of the same things. Who wants that flexible, part-time job? Who wants that safe, affordable, low rent, small unit? And some of our seniors and some of the people that are starting out are competing for the same things. And so if it's the grandparents or the grandkids, they want a brighter future, they want safety, they want a future, but it's harder to find.
So we need to find solutions for that. Before we talk about that, we go out each week and we have a segment on our show called Your Take, and we talk to our viewers, we tell them the subject matter we're going to be discussing, and they ask some questions or make some comments. So we have a Your Take right now. Take a listen.
And I think if we want to encourage a more vibrant society that has a mix of all kinds, we have to make it more affordable for younger people and maybe provide different options. Everything doesn't have to be high-end, but there should be different levels so that we encourage younger people to stay in the city and help contribute to the development of the overall city.
So Lexi, she has some great points there. So what are some of the solutions so that people can stay in their community and contribute to the vibrant society in which they live without having to go somewhere else or maybe to a rural part of the state in order just to make ends meet?
I think a big part of it is awareness. People need to know what's available to them in their respective communities. We partner, United Ways partner largely with 211. So folks who do find themselves in a situation or in need of help, or before they're in the situation where they really need help, to say, what resources are available to me, because there might be free or deeply discounted childcare through a nonprofit program. There is plenty of opportunity to learn about financial stability and how to save money and get banked if you don't have a bank account. If you're struggling to feed your family, there are lots of food pantries where you can go so that you can get that help that you need before you have to leave, before you're getting evicted from your apartment or whatever that might be. And I think largely it's awareness is key.
Well, and what I'm hearing, though, it sounds like, and you can speak to this, it's really as if we're telling people it's incumbent upon you to figure out these solutions for yourself. But in the meantime, we can look around and see that wages in many aspects aren't keeping up. Because how long do people want to, they don't want to continue to struggle. Or it's great you can go to the food bank. It's great that you can find these other programs to help you with childcare. But they want to get out of this Alice category, right? So how do we do that?
So United Ways look at this holistically, and we continue to work with organizations that help families. Because if you do want to get out of this, sometimes you need that job training or a coach to help you into that better job, into a more stable environment. So absolutely the family has to want the help, but nonprofits have to be empowered and have to have the resources to help these families, not to do good just for right now, but to do better. To do better. And then the nonprofits, and we have a little chain and it's all linked up because the nonprofits rely on corporations, rely on government, on elected officials. Everyone has to do their part to help the Alice families. There's no one trick, and there's not, oh yeah, well, the families need to do X. It's all of us continue to work together. United Way, we call it collective impact. So everyone doing something will start helping these families do better.
Laura, speak to what the state is doing, because a lot of it trickles down from what's happening in Tallahassee. Yeah. Tourism is our #1 industry here in the state. We know a lot of these Alice families are people who work in that industry. But how can we help? Again, I keep going back to the wages, but how can we start from that aspect from Tallahassee and let it trickle down to our residents here?
Absolutely. So the good news is what we can do at the state level is kind of similar to what we're doing at the local level. So there's every part of the community can contribute. So when we look at businesses, that's where we spend most of our time during the day, right? And so if businesses know of resources that can stabilize their employees, that helps. And so we're working with the Florida Chamber of Commerce to be able to find best practices. What can employers do? Working with the state. People may not know that it's tax season. There's over $1 billion just in one tax credits going unclaimed every year in Florida. There's hundreds of millions of other dollars.
Wait, say that again. That are going unclaimed?
Unclaimed. About 17% of families across the state qualify for something called the Earned Income Tax Credit.
Right.
You have to be working, but you have to be kind of in this sweet spot of working hard but falling short. You're Alice. But they don't often know where to go. Maybe they don't speak the language, or they don't trust it, or they don't think that anybody can help them. And across the entire state, United Ways are helping to make sure that families, and even people that are new to the workforce, that we can help them get off on the right foot, get their full tax refund back, and use that to build a better life. If that's to stay housed, even credit. Sometimes when you're talking about not just the emergencies, but a brighter future, credit is so important to that, because we pay a lot for car insurance, right? People don't know that if you could use your tax refund to pay for 6 months, that'll save you about $300 a year.
Wow.
If we can build your credit, we can save you almost that same amount of money, and you can get a car replacement, get a better job, get a better home. That future becomes within reach. And so those partnerships at the state and the local level are looking at some of those same issues, at meeting people where they are, but making sure that we get the barriers out of their way so that they can have a smoother path to a brighter future.
So it seems that it's education. It's reaching out to these members of the community and saying, hey, these resources are available to you. You don't have to struggle. We can help you, and we can give you some solutions. So, how do you reach out to those folks in the community? How do you let them know you're here and we're here to help you?
In Miami-Dade, we're in trains, we're in buses, we're on TV,
Yeah.
we try to get on radio. I think our media partners are so important to us to get the word out to folks. We're in newsletters, we work with the county, so we're always trying to say, hey, we have this available, you can come do your taxes for free. So we work with Miami-Dade County, we work with the school system to try to reach families. So anywhere where we can disseminate information, we're gonna be there, and we're gonna be trying to tell you the message of here's where we are to help. On another note, we also talk to businesses and elected officials and let them know these are the numbers, this is what we're doing, and let's try to find some solutions little by little to start helping, because we never wanted to feel like, oh, 6 out of 10, that's way too many, let's give up.
Yeah.
No.
That's not what we're
Never
about.
give up. And what do you think overall is the biggest issue? Is it housing affordability, Lexi? Is that one of the biggest problems?
I do think in Palm Beach County and in the Tri-County area, affordable housing is definitely a big challenge for us. And it does, again, it goes back to what are the other resources, so that if you are able to afford your housing, where can we help you in other areas to make sure that you're making ends meet? And I think an important part of it for all of us, and the beautiful thing about United Ways, is that we fund programs that truly help make a lasting impact. They're not quick fixes. They're teaching people how to eventually become self-sustaining, and that's very important.
Have either of you, before we go, had a personal experience with an Alice family that you've seen get help and that it has made a difference? Lars?
Well, Lars has many. We used to work together through the United Way Center for Financial Stability, but one that I say is I spoke with a grandma, she was in her 60s, and she told me, I understand my finances now better than I have in my entire life.
Wow.
And that gave me power. And that she made a lasting impact on me, because she knows more now than she did ever, and she's a grandma, and she was doing more with what she had. So
It was never too late for her to learn, right? Thank you all so very much. Such great information. I think we've empowered a lot of people today, I hope, and they know where to go get information. So we want to let you know that we're going to be putting some of that information for you about the Alice Report and the work that the United Way does on our Facebook page. If you'd like to weigh in on the Alice Report or any other topic that matters to you, we'd love to get your take. And of course, you can always reach us on social media at YourSouthFL, or send us an email to YourSouthFlorida@southfloridapbs.org. We look forward to hearing from you. Significantly, leaving nearly 2/3 of county households under serious financial stress. And here now to talk some solutions for the Tri-County area are Lars Gilbert, statewide Alice Director, Yanette Obarrio Sanchez, Senior Director of Public Relations for the United Way of Miami-Dade, and Alexia Savage, Senior VP of Communications and Resource Development for the United Way of Palm Beach County. Thank you all so much for being here to talk about this really important topic. So 5 offices across the state looked at the number of Florida residents barely making ends meet and living on the edge of poverty. It's called the ALICE Report, an acronym which stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. In other words, people with jobs, some with college degrees, who are still struggling to cover the basics, such as rent, health care, food, and child care. Because they earn more than the federal poverty level, they don't qualify for state or federal assistance. While Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties all have a few thousand homeless people living on the streets, we don't often think of the thousands of families across South Florida on the verge of poverty or losing their home because of financial disaster. In its annual report, the United Way has released some stunning numbers that show many local families, perhaps our neighbors, even friends, who are just one paycheck away from losing it all. The United Way, in collaboration with its 30 programs such as Medicaid. Statewide, nearly 30% of households are considered ALICE. Add that to the 14.5% already living in poverty, and you've got nearly half of Florida households in financial danger. Here in the Tri-County area, the numbers for Palm Beach and Broward counties track fairly close to the state average, with 40 and 44% of households below the poverty line or in the ALICE category. But in Miami-Dade, those numbers jumped significantly. Yannette, let's start with you. A lot of folks have never even heard about the ALICE report, startling statistics coming from it. So tell us more about how this all got started.
Well, it got started in United Way of Northern New Jersey. It was a well-to-do county, and they feared that many people thought, well, no one in our community is really struggling. Maybe those few. And the United Way there said, it's not those few. We're going to take a look at the real struggles of working families.